Noam medigum qazam kitselas. Khanigo sastitiaks tsnaganda qasqoq seqamqwa that lachyum. Asara nagetka kitselas dem loyalke khane dem hayram loyalke khanigo dan lawel astigikos a white will sagyawn. Asam the loyalke khanigo nasa quantum. Aina krasnum up khaniget. Nedem qanam get til la loyalke khanigo. Sa sam dem sa de dab kudum dup tachit ni nasab local asharam. We are just about there and we really want it.
The following video highlights my grandfather, Mel Bevan, who wanted to share his thoughts with you, the Kitselas members, on his hopes and dreams for our future as a people. He requested that Mark Stevenson, the legal advisor on the Kitselas Treaty, be included in this video to share specifics of the treaty terms that were finalized. The treaty team has contributed some thoughts as well. We hope that you will gain a glimpse into why my grandfather gave so much of his time and energy throughout his life to ensure the treaty might become a reality for us all, the Kitselas people.
I have a copy of minutes of a meeting that took place 1911. And treaty was talked about. But if you look at Walter Wright, Samuel Wise, Mark McKay, Silas Bevan, George Bevan, Albert Mackenzie, Sam Kennedy, Richard Cecil, these are the people speaking at the meeting. And the person who actually wrote minutes back in that then was Ben Seymour. The people wanted a treaty in 1911 because they knew they were losing their land. They no longer had authority over their land. They were living in the canyon at the time, and they wanted at least 10 miles up the river and 10 miles downriver. It was their land. They needed it for survival. That was what they asked for. But when the Indian Act came along, they reduced all our land to Indian reserves, from 100,000 hectares down to 1,000 hectares. And the Indian Act took away their power. So they had no power to govern or to make decisions or to manage the land or to take resources off the land. In the old days, they built all their houses, canoes, everything. All they had to do was go get it because there was plenty here. And people helped each other. They all did that. And what they wanted was land that we own and nobody can touch it. That's what they were after.
So Mel was appointed by the Kitselas elders back in the early 90s when we were at one time under the Tsimshian Tribal Council. All 7 First Nations came together, and each one of those nations appointed a chief negotiator. And so Mel was appointed by the people of Kitselas. It wasn't an appointment by the elected band council. It was an appointment by the Kitselas elders.
There's a lot of assumption that the treaty process is something the government invented as a program. That's not true. We fought for it for over 100 years. When we were actually able to do it, to negotiate, that's when we started. We tried everything, and I've worked for years before that, trying to get Canada to agree to negotiate with us.
When we did the vote on the agreement in principle, it was a good, solid majority of members said, yes, we give you the mandate to negotiate a treaty. But there were concerns about it.
So since the AIP, the treaty team has held monthly community meetings where people have been able to voice their concerns in order to fully support the treaty team. The negotiators have listened.
Mel actually coined the term winning conditions. He said, these are the winning conditions that we need to meet before we take the treaty to the Kitselas community. And we told the government of Canada and the government of British Columbia, look, if we meet those winning conditions, then we would be prepared to recommend the treaty to Kitselas members. And we have now met those winning conditions.
Living agreement, periodic renewal, no extinguishment of rights, recognition of Aboriginal rights, tax exemption continues, programs and services continue and are enhanced.
And then I remember that when I was growing up, we were walking around the country with my grandfather, because we used to walk all over the place. We didn't care where the boundary was. We simply walked. After I was 16, in my 20s, I tried to do that, and I was told to get off their property, private property. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere anymore. You know? And I experienced that myself. Joe Watson was my grandfather that was showing me everything around. There's a slough down the road where we used to fish for trout in the wintertime. Cut holes in the ice and we used to catch all kinds of trout. Until somebody bought that property and kicked us off. There used to be in the river probably 30, 40 million fish every year.
This trap fishing, of course, is only one of the methods used to catch the millions of salmon. The salmon run is short, lasting from the middle of May until the middle of August, and every means is taken to catch as many fish as possible.
They wiped all the fish out. There's hardly any left. Right? I think this year there was 800,000 went up. You know, when even when I was young, there was still probably about 6 million going up. Now it's almost nothing. They've basically taken everything. We have nothing left.
And it was just like recently that we really heard and understood the real depth of what happened to us. And that did something to me. That our government, as we understood it then, they didn't consider us people. Treaty will change that.
Living agreement.
So when Kitselas set about negotiating the treaty 30 years ago, our community had a vision that this treaty wouldn't be a treaty like other treaties in British Columbia. This would be an evergreen document that grows like a tree that has no limits.
Periodic renewal.
Well, other modern treaties were final agreements. They couldn't be renewed. And the Kitselas Treaty, we call it a living agreement because it's always alive and it can always be changed. We can open up the treaty once every 10 years, and it's called periodic renewal.
No extinguishment of rights.
The language in the Kitselas Treaty says there is no extinguishment. It says the rights are recognized and affirmed and they are not extinguished. And that's a very, very powerful statement. So it recognizes existing Aboriginal rights and treaty rights and Aboriginal title and the inherent right to self-government. Mel was always thinking about what community members look for, so he made us negotiate that.
One thing that a lot of people don't know today, what is a treaty? You know, a treaty is an agreement between two nations, Canada and Kitselas as an independent nation. That's what a treaty is. It's not some side agreement like a contract, like a contribution agreement, none of that stuff. It's an agreement between two countries.
Tax exemption continues.
The simplest way to understand the tax exemption is that nothing changes. If you have a tax exemption now, you will have a tax exemption after the treaty comes into effect. Nothing changes. It's exactly the same as it is now, except for property tax. The nation can tax non-members and allow the exemption for members. Other than that, it's exactly the same now. You buy gas on reserve, you're exempt. You purchase goods on reserve, you're exempt. It works exactly as it does now.
What the treaty changes is our authority to manage, to govern, right? It also gives us most of our land back that we can actually develop any way we want to without going to Ottawa and get permission. And then we own it. Canada won't own it. So we can do whatever we want with it. And it's going to take a long time. I've always said maybe 4 or 5 generations before things go the way they could. Because the treaty itself is not going to do it. It's the people, the government, Kitselas government, Kitselas staff, the Kitselas elders to direct these people on what we need. Now, one really sore spot is they have what is called on reserve or off reserve.
The treaty can bridge a gap between our on and off reserve populations.
That's Indian Affairs to set that up because it's cheaper. It saves them money. So the band office only works with people who live on reserve, not people who live on. So it's not about people. It's about rules, regulations.
So if my children decide to leave the reserve or decide to leave the community, and they have the status card, and just like any urban community member would, they would still be able to continue to access things like education services and non-insured health benefits.
The new government, the government that's created by the Kitselas Constitution, would be about people.
Programs and services continue and are enhanced.
All the existing programs and services continue. All of those dollars continue. And those programs and services will all be enhanced. Kitselas will receive approximately $3 million annually for band support funding. And that's in addition to the other programs and services they're already receiving. They can establish laws and modify the programs. They will manage the programs. They are managing the programs now.
This treaty, it's going to give so many benefits to our people. And Mel, he didn't do this for himself. He didn't do this for his children, but he did it for the people of Kitselas to have a fair treaty that he felt was worthwhile accepting.
And my grandfather, he taught me about nature, right? The way things work naturally. I think I was 9 years old. He come knocking at our door and told my mom it's time. So she sent me out. I used to ride in a canoe all the time growing up. I was little. Sit in the canoe and paddle and pole. And that day, we got in the canoe and I sat down and he said, "Stand up. Only women sit down in a canoe." That's when I realized he was going to treat me different. When I came home, my mom stopped treating me like a little boy. She never ever told me to do anything anymore. That's how it works. That's how you learn.
My grandfather Hudson, he was a very independent, forward thinker. He just did his own thing. He didn't bow to anyone. I think we sort of rubbed off on my brother. Mel was so passionate because he could see the difference was so obvious in the way that the settlers on the other side of the tracks lived and the way we had to live here. It had a lot to do with how he saw things and tried to, I guess, to correct our thinking, because we've got so used to being silent.
Joe Hudson taught me everything he could. My job at the time was follow him around every day. That's where I learned about how we live. Why it's important to do things the way we do it, not the way we're forced to do. That's how nature works. If you understand how nature works, you can do anything. That's what they taught us. It's all about nature. Even today I still do that, because it's not just about animals or trees, it's about human beings.
My father's philosophy for the treaty came from his teachings from his grandfather, Joe Hudson, and his mother, Flora Bevan. And in his growing up here in Endadoon, he understood the importance of everything that they did and the meaning of everything that they done in their life and how it fitted into to being a good person. And he brought that into the treaty.
You're going to hear people say, we're not ready. Of course we're not ready. So what Canada has agreed to do, they're going to give us about $9 million to train, establish, set up, make laws, our laws, set up administrations was run properly.
Mel used to say that self-government without the ability to enforce laws is an empty promise. And that was all out of Mel's book, Silent Voices, because he said that, those people are quiet, they're not heard, and they need to be listened to. And one of the ways of doing that is to ensure that there's accountability, and accountability happens when you have the ability to enforce your own laws. Kitselas will have their own law enforcement officers. Police will enforce Kitselas laws.
We'll never go back in time. There's no way we can do it. It's not going to, all of a sudden, we start walking around, wearing feathers and all that stuff. That's not going to do it. It's about how we develop our land and how we train our children, not on culture, but on business and politics and management. Right now, if you went to university and got a good degree, you end up working in Vancouver, not on the reserve. We have to hire non-native people to do that. And they don't know us. They don't know what we need. We need our own people to do that, because then they know about us, about humans, right? We're human beings, right? And so our young people should be, going to university, learning, all kinds of trades, because there'll be lots of work for them here, real work, professional work.
The Indian Act has controlled us all the way up until now. We're so excited to finally be able to have rights and title of our own lands and lives through a treaty.
Because currently, without a treaty, the federal government under the Indian Act, they have a strict criteria for band membership. If you are enrolled to vote and that potential treaty is passed, you, the Kitselas band member, you, the Kitselas citizen, you have ensured that for the next generation, for your children and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, no matter who they marry, they will always be considered Kitselas people.
Yeah, I kind of mixed feelings coming up here. Last time I was here, of course, we said goodbye to Mel, and it always leaves a bit of a kind of an emptiness in my heart. But we're continuing to do the work that he started. You're going to have treaty settlement lands of 96,000 acres, treaty cash settlement of 139 million, new dollars ongoing of 5.3 million. That's in addition annually to whatever you get now. And we're going to get some startup funding to make sure that we get ready, capacity building and training in order to finish this project.
If our people accept the treaty, we can look at how are we going to invest the $139 million that's on the table. We can set up trust funds for the youth, for education. A senior's pension plan was developed because Mel felt that he wanted to start giving back to the people and the elders. They needed to start seeing the benefits of a treaty. And so we've implemented a Kitselas only pension plan that they are receiving benefits right now.
The type of treaty we're negotiating with, Canada has made the offers. Canada and British Columbia have agreed. It took us 30 years to do it, but they've agreed. And they're not going to agree to anything more. We've reached a point where that's it. There is nothing else that they're willing to give. We can't get all our land back because private citizens live on it. But we got all the land that we could that nobody actually owns. It's scattered all over the place, but it does achieve that 10 miles that I was talking about earlier. 10 miles upriver and 10 miles down. It does that. And that if we vote no, that's the end. All the land and cash that Canada brought, they'll simply put it away. They'll take it back. Canada would prefer it if we just quit and said, no, we're not negotiating anymore. To them, they'd be perfectly happy with that. Same as British Columbia, because they don't have to give us any land. They just keep running the Indian Act. It's us that's forcing it to happen, not Canada. Right now, the land that they've promised us, that we've negotiated, nobody can touch. We don't own it, but nobody can touch it. Nobody can log it. Nobody can buy it. But once we vote no, then they can just buy it all up. People, right? It'll all be gone.
Mel took all his life, and certainly the last 20 or 30 years, locked in the vision of freeing Kitselas community, the Kitselas people, from under the Indian Act. That was the goal of his life's work, was to complete the treaty, and we will carry on that legacy and we will complete it for him. In the end, it's not our treaty, it's not Mel's treaty, it's the treaty of the people from Kitselas.
Mel Bevan, I think it's always going to be important to acknowledge and remember the hard work that Mel did up until his passing. The very last day, he signed a document on behalf of Kitselas as the chief negotiator for Kitselas. So we certainly appreciate the hard work that Mel did, not only for his family, but for his people. And right up until he passed, he was the chief negotiator. He certainly put his heart and soul into this process. I think it's up to us to try and finish the work that he started.
If you think about what on today and what it is that the people wanted in 1911, compare what it is that they were trying to do with what we've managed to achieve. I think that if you compared it, that we were able to achieve what they were trying to do. Because what they were trying to do was save us as a nation, save us as a culture, save us as a people. Because that's what we are. We are a people. We are a people. And they wanted to stay as people, doing things our own way. But if I know that the job is done, then that's what I know. Job is done. Right? And I hope it gets done. I don't know if it will be, but I hope it does.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it helped you to better understand how much time, consultation, planning, and hard work has gone into making our Kitselas Treaty such a powerful, unique treaty. And I hope that you cast your vote with us to ensure that the Kitselas people have a brighter and better tomorrow.